We are back. What is up, everyone? Dolphins versus Texans game preview. Been doing this every week, breaking down the games. Biggest game left on the schedule. Huge, very, very important. Really, you have to win out, so every game is very important. But this is definitely like the toughest one on the road versus a pretty good team in Houston. They haven't been playing maybe up to their standard throughout the whole year. Like, they're definitely beatable. I feel like, I feel more confident in this one than I did the Packers game, but it's still going to be very tough. Like, they have a good defense. We're going to break that down. Offense, they have talent, but overall haven't been playing maybe up to their standard this year. They're a run-first team, so we'll, get that down. But yeah, it definitely looks like the frames are tough right now. I'm hungover and don't feel good, but gotta listen in. Love that trollway. Yeah, hopefully the frames fix itself. So it looks like it's going up a little bit. No, but it's going back down. I don't know. Maybe one day my connection will actually be okay, but usually it gets better as the stream goes on. So, but I think for the Dolphins to win this game, key part, I think the Dolphins, like, I know what to expect from the Dolphins offense. Since Tua's returned, the offense has overall played very well. Even in the games maybe they had some struggle points, they were still performing at a solid level. The Dolphins defense needs to play like they did versus the Rams. And the reason I think I could see that happening is the Rams and the Texans, all, they're both from the Shanahan system, just like the Dolphins offense. Dolphins will then also play the Niners next week. So a lot of Shanahan scheme stuff going on here over these next 2 weeks. And the last time the Dolphins defense had a really good game was versus the Rams, who also, McVay runs a very similar style. I also think they have similar talent levels to the Rams. And the Rams are playing well right now, too. They've won 7 of their last 9. That was a good win for the Dolphins. But I think this Texans game, that's kind of how you stop it. Stopping the run, and first and foremost, they are a run-heavy team. They run Mixon a lot. Like, they'll get to 2nd and 10 situations, and they'll still run the ball. So being ready for that. The Dolphins statistically have been pretty good versus the run in recent times. Really sounds like Chubb is not coming back this week. I just don't understand not having Chubb come back this week. Are they the most boring game we have left? You just can't force him back. He's not 100%. I think if he had just torn his ACL, he already would have been back. But we heard this week that he tore his meniscus and I think something else too. He tore 3 things in his knee. So I think that's the reason he just hasn't come back yet, which is unfortunate. Because usually, when you're tearing multiple things in the knee, usually it takes about a year. But if it's usually just a clean ACL tear, usually you can get back in that 9 to 10 months range. So I think that's just hurt him. I'm guessing he's just not 100%, But yeah, I think if the defense has to play better than they have been, for sure better than they did versus the Packers, for sure better than they did versus the Jets. The Jets game was bad. Yeah, it was the patella tendon. So yeah, the defense is kind of the key part of this game. I think they can stop the run enough, the Texans being a run-heavy team. It's just they can't let the Texans passing game be play better than they have been, which, yeah. I was shocked to hear that they hit the factory towards the ACL. Yeah, it wasn't the MCL and PCL. I think that was first reported. I think they misheard him, but yeah, it was but it was 2 other things. It was the patellar tendon and what I just said. No, the meniscus. Yeah. So he did tear 3 things, which sucks. But yeah, Stroud, their quarterback, good player, obviously, but not having necessarily the best season. Was much better rookie year. He's shown inconsistency this year. I still think he has the good arm talent. He still has the ability to extend some plays. But really how you attack this Texans offense is they have 2 pretty good tackles. Obviously, Laremy Tunsil at left tackle is good. I do think if Chop gets one-on-one with their right tackle, Howard, he can have some wins there. But really where they're weak is the interior. The Texans' interior line isn't the greatest. I think they're missing one of their starters as well, but they might be getting one back from injury, Green. So it'll be interesting to see how it ends up, kind of matching out. But I think their interior O-line is kind of how you have to beat them. I think Sealer and Campbell have to have huge games, creating pressure and obvious passing situation. Because if they can do that, that can completely flip the game and makes everyone else's job a little bit easier across the board. I think you need a big, defensively schemed game out of Weaver. I think he needs to really, flip the script and, have like really good play calls in those obvious situations. The turnover battle will be huge. Dolphins haven't had too many turnovers offensively, and that's been a big part of their consistency, I think, as of late. But the Texans defense is very good, and we'll get into that. But I think forcing Stroud maybe into some turnovers can be like the flip the defense needs. It doesn't need to like have stops every drive, but if it can get like a turnover or two, that would be absolutely huge. But yeah, they will ride Mixon very heavily. Just like looking at their roster, they have good receivers as well. Obviously, Nico Collins, I think he's one of the better receivers in the league this season. He missed some time with injury, but when he's played, I think as a true like X receiver, he's been dominant. They don't have Diggs is out for season, so Diggs is not a factor here, but they have a good receiver room. Behind Collins, they have Tank Dell. I think he's a good number 2, very twitched up guy, can play in the slot, play on the outside, create separation. A smaller frame player, not the most physical, can have some drops, but he is a guy that can get open and create separation. Then they have like quality guys. I think John Mechie's a good, number 3 for them right now. But yeah, that's kind of the off. They have solid tight end play, but nothing too spectacular with Dalton Schultz and Cade Stover. But really, the weakness on their offense is their interior O-line, and that's kind of where I think the Dolphins can take advantage. If their defense is to have success, is creating that interior disruption. Don't need to bring. We'll love to see a lot more double. Don't need to bring it every time, but a few of those, yeah. They tried doing that last week, Dro, but it didn't quite work versus Rodgers. I wonder if they'll, kick it up again. But we'll see. Yeah, I think the Dolphins will try to get a running game going, but overall, I don't know if that's gonna work out too well. It might just be another pass-heavy approach. That's what I would just have to guess from that. I do think that, it's nice that the game, I think Houston's Texans Stadium's a dome, right? Or it's like at least it's retractable or whatever. So I think the offense should be, there's no like the weather's not going to be a factor, which I think so the offense should be pretty fine to, conduct at usual, even though it's on the road. But if we don't activate Chubb, who takes OBJ 53 spot, I think it could, we only have 4 receivers on the roster, right? So I think it could be Grant DeBose, because I think he started practicing and he could get activated as well. I guess they could also activate Cameron Good, the other edge that I think is coming back. So I guess it could be one of them. I guess they're also, I don't remember who else is maybe potentially being activated, but they do need a receiver. I wouldn't be surprised if it's like DeBose or something. What else? They lost their nickel this week. The Texans did. Jalen Petrie, who, if you guys have followed this channel for years now, then I was a huge Jalen Petrie fan coming out of the draft. He played safety for Baylor. I think, them losing him is big because he was their starting nickel. He makes a lot of impact plays. He's very good near the line of scrimmage, making plays versus the run. So that's pretty nice. I have their coverage lists right here. So like, here's the Texans. They run cover 0 at 3%. So not a big cover 0 team. 3% pretty low, but that's pretty, normal for most teams. They run cover 1 at 23%. So they will show some man-to-man single high looks. Not their go-to coverage, but it's definitely something they mix in there. They don't run cover 2 man. They are 0% cover 2 man. Cover 2, they run at 8%, which I believe is 4th lowest. So the Dolphins, who face a ton of cover 2 on a weekly basis, Texans do not run a lot of cover 2. This is D'Amico Ryans is the head coach. It's like that Niners system we faced in the past, similar to what the Jets would run under Robert Saleh. So like Dolphins have experience against this kind of style of defense. I would say we've been pretty 50-50 against it at times. Like there's been games where McDaniel had like the perfect game plan for it. There's been games where like, we maybe didn't have, the ideal looks that they wanted. So I think, their most used coverages are, then cover 3, they run at 29%, and then quarters, they run at 22%. So like, and then cover 6 at 10%. So they will go quarters. You can get some deep like post shots versus quarters, also attacking the flats versus quarters, which the Dolphins have done a good job in recent times attacking the flats. Teams usually run cover 2 at a higher rate against the Dolphins than they do against their other opponents. So I still imagine they're going to run cover 2. But this is a team that I don't think will rely on it like other teams will. If you just look at the film, it's not what they really like to do. They will give you opportunities to attack down the field. So I hope the Dolphins take a few more deep shots in this game than usual. I think the opportunities for that will be there, but they shouldn't go away from what's been working either, because I think still getting into the flow of the game, the play, that type of stuff, that's always helpful. And then, yeah, the rest of the defense, I think they're getting back a D lineman. I always forget, I don't know how to pronounce it. I think it's Folo Fatukasi. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but he's coming back for them. Their front's very good. Hunter, Will Anderson, very good edge group. Hunter actually leads the league in pressures, so he's someone to keep an eye on for sure. I think the best thing the Dolphins have going for them against that stuff is just their scheme, their offense to get rid of the ball so quickly. So pressures can sometimes not be a factor for them. As long as they, can stay in the rhythm of their game, they don't go down too early, so they have to then hard commit to the passing game. They can, show the run game so they can use play action. Then the pressure shouldn't be as big of a deal, but Hunter is someone to keep an eye on. He leads the league in pressures. I actually believe in pass rush win rate since week 11, I got it right here. Since week 11, the top 3 players in pass rush win rate are Chop Robinson, and number 2 is Hunter. And then 3 is Micah Parsons. So Hunter for the Texans, Danielle Hunter, very good player. Very, very good. Here. Gotta check something real quick on the stream. Yeah. Message tries acquired stolen. He hasn't gotten a look yet. Yeah, it might be just one of those things where they're gonna stick with the guys they've got because they trust them more, on a play-to-play basis. But the rest of the team for the Texans, let's look. Okay. The secondary, I think the Texans have a pretty solid secondary. I talked about Petrie's out, so they're starting Nichols out. So who's replacing him is Jimmy Ward, who's also another pretty solid player. He used to play for the Niners, so he has the experience within the system. Then they have 2 rookies back there that I want to talk about. Kalen Bullock and Kamari Lassiter actually playing very solidly for them. And then they have Derek Stingley at corner. Now, the Dolphins have very good receivers, and I think they can still beat these players if they get true one-on-one matchups. But they do a good job back there with their play calling, putting these guys in advantageous positions. But there is times where they will leave them one-on-one, and if you watched last week versus the Jaguars, Brian Thomas Jr. could have had 300 yards receiving. He was missed by, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago versus the Jaguars. Yeah, before the bye. The last time they played was the bye. But they missed. Trevor Lawrence missed him for a 70-yard touchdown. Mac Jones also missed him for a 70-yard touchdown just on deep post plays. So I think deep post, because they like to run quarters. They also run cover 3, and if you can occupy the middle of the field safety, some of these plays will be, I think, open down the field. They will be a little more aggressive than some of the other teams. Then their linebackers. I think their linebackers, because they don't have the one guy that got suspended, Azeez Al-Shaair, he got suspended for the hit on Lawrence. He's not playing. So they have Henry To'o, Alabama linebacker. I remember watching him in the draft. Very instinctive player, very undersized. So I do think their linebackers are pretty undersized, but with To'o is instinctful, plays with good athleticism. But if Brewer can climb to him at the second level or get hands on him on screens, I do think there's potential for some more pancakes this week for Brewer if he gets hands on. And then they also have Neville Hewitt, which, if you guys remember Neville Hewitt, he played for the Dolphins for years. I believe he was an undrafted guy. He was always a special teams player, but he started for them last week in replace of Azeez Al-Shaair. So he's a player that I think we can attack. Probably one of their weaker links on defense. It wasn't like he played horrible last week, but he's a guy that I think, attacking the middle of the field. But yeah, they got Eric Murray at safety, all right safety play. Kalen Bullock, rookie from USC, playing good for them. He's their middle of the field free safety. But they got some young guys back there. Jalen Petrie being gone, I think, is a loss for them. Let me check these. Boom, boom, boom. Trying to find these stats for the Texans. Boom. Okay, so here we got some of the Texans stats. There it is. Yeah, so they rank offensively like either around in a lot of categories. They rank pretty average. Like they're 11th in points per game, but they're 18th in yards per game, 15 in points per play, 20 in yards per play, 21st in third down conversion. So they're like middle of the pack, either like a little above average or slightly below average offensively in a lot of these categories. Same with their rushing statistics and their passing statistics, like yards per pass 17. They're like middle of the pack pretty much everywhere. Their defense is definitely their stronger suit. Like they're 12th in points per game, but 5th in yards per game that they give up. 6th in third down conversion, so that'll be a good battle on third downs. Dolphins offense versus the Texans defense on third down. They have a pretty good run defense as well. They actually have their completion percentage on defense is actually number 1. So that will be interesting because, like I was saying, usually when you have like a low completion percentage, that means you have a pretty aggressive defense. Like you're trying to get rid of those short passes and, maybe allow them to take lower percentage throws down the field, give them those opportunities one-on-ones. But the Dolphins have been since Tua's return, leading the league in completion percentage. So that will be interesting to see how that battle plays up. Do the Dolphins take more downfield shots than usual, or do the Texans decide to play a little softer than they usually do because of the Dolphins' speed on the offense? So that'll be like an interesting go against each other. Just looking at their stats. They got some smaller linebackers. I really want to see them get to the second level with Brewer in this game. That would be very helpful. I just want to see at least some positive runs throughout there. It's been very difficult to get anything going in the running game. But yeah, they really only need to run the ball at this point just to be able to continue with like play action and stuff like that. Let's see. Yeah, I think we're gonna see some deep shots like I was talking about. They will go single high, they'll play cover 1, they'll play cover 3. Dolphins should be able to attack the flats, and when they go like quarters and stuff like that, the Dolphins have been going more outside the numbers, hitting like those quick 8-yard, 7-yard outs. Tua's throwing those, I think, with a little more conviction, feeling more comfortable doing that stuff. Still the anticipatory stuff down the field, but I wonder if we'll see him take a couple shots on some post down the field. It'll be interesting because that just hasn't been a part of the game plan. But I feel like if they're watching the film, they're like, hey, if they're running their same coverages they usually do and they're not adjusting, we're taking more deep shots in this game. But the Texans haven't been like great. I mean, they're coming off a bye, so that's always, causes problems. But like, it wasn't like they looked very good versus the Jaguars. They lost to the Titans before that. They are a very beatable team. And I still think it's the toughest game left on the schedule because then you play the Niners after that, who are, the Dolphins should be focusing one game at a time for sure. But I'm from a fan perspective looking ahead. If they were to win versus the Texans, I think they'd be favored in the other 3 because the Niners have been playing bad, and I'm pretty sure they're like 0.1% chance of making the playoffs. So like they're basically eliminated, so they kind of have nothing to play for anymore. Then they play the Browns, and then they play the Jets, who are both teams they should beat. I even need to watch all 22. You can see live. We telegraph every right run play. Honestly, Scott, I've seen you say that. I don't really agree. To be honest, I just think the Dolphins, we can't run block. I don't think it matters who's back there. No one's ran the ball well, whether it's Wright or Achane or who's ever in the backfield. They've just missed an assignment every single time. It might be a telegraph all around, but I don't think it's just like a Wright specific thing. Do you think Elijah Campbell will be an upgrade over Poyer? Honestly, yes, but not like crazy amount. I think Campbell's a good depth safety and a very good special teamer. And I think he's kind of underrated on defense. But I would like to just see him back there because I think he would at least play fast and play tough and be willing to get involved in tackles. I think he'd also offer you a little more versatility than what Poyer does at this point in his career. Sure, we can't run block, but it's worth it, right? Because the defense keys, right? See, I don't think they really do. I don't think they like see Wright come in the game or like threatened by him or anything. It's not like Wright's gained any positive yards, and like he's gained like a couple positive runs in the past like 7-8 weeks. And it's not like we don't pass when he comes in the game. I mean, we might be more likely to run, but I just don't think he's gotten very many opportunities. It's been like 2 run carries when he's gotten in the game. I just don't think the Dolphins are running the ball at all, and literally just can't run block. Whether it's tight ends or tackles or guards, missing assignments. Yeah, after Austin Jackson, run game was greatly diminished. Right, faces stacked boxes. I don't know. I mean, he's faced stacked boxes on some of his runs, but I think that's just because he's gotten runs on 1st and 10, which is usually when teams play with more stacked boxes. But when he got like 2nd and 10 runs when there weren't stacked boxes, he ran some decent plays. Is he still on the team when I bring him up and give him a shot at wide receiver 3? He's on the practice squad. And I think they just trust the other guys they have right now. I think they want to get Malik more reps. I think they want to have Craycraft active. And then I imagine they're probably going to activate DeBose because I think they want to try to see what DeBose has. Because I saw people mad DeBose would come back because DeBose had that dropped pass versus the Bills, which led to the pick. But to me, I'm pretty sure DeBose is like 23 years old and he's a physical blocking receiver. I'd love to have him out there as like your 5th guy if he can come in on run and help with any sort of blocking. I know he had that drop, but like, I mean, it was one bad play and then he got injured. So he is still very young. So I mean, I don't mind him getting a chance. It's not like we're throwing it to those guys anymore anyways. You think our tackles could hold up against Houston edge rushers? In like true pass sets? Not really, especially because no Armstead. Like I think if we played like a true pass set game, like where say they had like 20 or so actual one-on-ones with Patrick Paul and Kendall Lamb, I think the Texans edges would destroy them in pass protection. But since the Dolphins don't really do that and they use a lot of play action, they use a lot of quick passing game, I think the way around that is just, you know, what we usually do. It's just the Dolphins don't always rely on that. Yeah, and Lamb's injured too. Yeah, they would definitely, like, if it was like what other teams do on a down-and-down basis, we weren't running the Shanahan style scheme, yes, they would destroy our offensive tackles, but that's just not what we run. So as long as we don't get into those situations, like as long as the Dolphins don't go down a lot early, because when they go down a lot early and they have to like really commit to the pass, like there's not even a threat of the run anymore, that's when our offensive tackles will get into trouble. But yeah. That's kind of the gist of that. But I think next year will be interesting with the O-line. I think you'll have both of your guards are free agents. I feel like you have Brewer set in stone. I believe Jackson will be back, right? I can't remember. I don't think his injury was season ending, it seems like, right? But it wasn't like it should affect him into next year, at least the gist of it. So I think Jackson will be fine at right tackle. I think the other positions are your question marks, because left tackle, you don't really know what's going to happen with like Teron Armstead, if he's going to retire or not. And then guard, both of them are free agents, and I'd be looking to upgrade at both spots anyways. So guard will be maybe they'll be almost, with them being free agents, they might be forced to actually make changes at guard, which is, I think, a good thing. What was AJ's injury again? I think it was a knee, right? But I don't think it was like, it might have been like a partial tear or something. I can't remember. But it was one where like they were like, maybe he's going to go on IR, but like maybe he'd come back. But I think he got surgery on it, but I don't think it was, yeah, it just says knee injury. It doesn't say exactly, like it doesn't have specifics. But yeah, I think will be a fun game. I feel like when we did, I mean, last week versus the Jets, it was closer than it needed to be. Like, I thought the Dolphins were the better team going into it, and they should have lost towards the end with how it ended up playing out. But they, got a little bit lucky with how the Jets, went out of bounds at the end and they came back. Hopefully they can build off the momentum. I thought the Packers game, I thought that one was going to be a tough one, and it was. I thought Green Bay was the hardest game left on the schedule. Now I think at this point the Texans game is the hardest game left on the schedule, but I don't think it's as tough as the Packers game, considering the Packers game was it was on the road. It was a primetime game. I think the Packers are also just better than the Texans, and it was also in bad weather. I think the Texans game, it's on the road, but the weather conditions shouldn't be too bad, which I think always will help out the Dolphins. I think this Texans team is actually fairly similar to the Rams, and the Dolphins beat the Rams, handful of weeks ago, and actually kind of beat them pretty good. And the Rams have won 7 of the last 9. I actually think the Rams might even be a better team when the Dolphins played them compared to what the Texans are right now. Maybe not talent level wise. Talent level wise, I think they're pretty similar, but I think the Rams are playing at a more consistent level than Houston is. So, but it's a week-to-week league. Anything can absolutely happen. They do run similar offensive systems. Defensively, I think is where Houston's gonna. That's kind of the battle. The Houston's defense versus the Dolphins' offense is the good battle of the units that are playing well, and then the other side is where it's okay, who out of these units that are struggling will step up? I kind of lean the Texans' offense will have more success versus the Dolphins than their defense will, but maybe the defense will surprise me. The one time the defense surprised me this season was versus the Rams, because they weren't playing very well the previous weeks. They struggled versus the Cardinals, struggled versus the Bills, and then out of nowhere, they gave up no touchdowns versus the Rams, which was surprising. Rams missing key players versus us. Yeah, but they weren't missing, they were missing a right tackle, which hurt them a lot. But they had the rest of their playmakers out there. They had Stafford. Some of their other O-linemen had just come back too that they hadn't had in weeks. They had their receivers there. And their defense actually played pretty good against the Dolphins offense. I would say the Rams defense, since Tua's returned, I would say the Rams defense gave Tua the most troubles. Even though we won. Because he had a couple turnovers in that game. But every other game, I feel Tua looked. I would say since the Cardinals game, I would say the Rams game was probably Tua's worst game. Overall. And we still won, which is interesting. Not really related, but the RB, Scatabo from Arizona. Yeah, I like Scatabo. When it comes draft time, I think it just depends where Scatabo goes in the draft. If he was a day 3 pick, I do think the Dolphins should be looking for a running back on day 3, just because it's one of those positions where I think running back always falls in the draft just because it's not super valued. And I always think you can get solid players at that position on day 3. And I think he maybe wouldn't be the perfect scheme fit overall with the outside zone the Dolphins like to run, but the Dolphins need a fix. The Dolphins need a fix on the line. They need a fix on 3rd and 4th and short situations. And I think Scatabo would do that. Dude, I feel Scatabo could literally be obviously he's a running back, but he almost feels like he could be a Taysom Hill type of weapon for you, how the Saints use Taysom Hill. I feel Scatabo could almost be that role, and you use him in Wildcat, snap him the ball. I feel short yardage he would help, and that would be an interesting way to use him. And he would be your 3rd running back, but bring him in on 3rd and 4th and short and let him go to work. Because that's one area the Dolphins need to improve on for next season, is their short yardage running. And I think getting a running back that's maybe better in short yardage will help. But probably the biggest thing I would think is getting more, beefed up guards in the running game, and then having a better inline wide tight end that can block would make worlds of difference. And this tight end class is legit. I love the tight end class. Then there's some guys I like at receiver. I wonder if I can show this here. This is a receiver that I like, actually. I talked about this guy. The TCU receiver, Jake Beck is his name. He used to play tight end at LSU. I think the Dolphins need a big body receiver. And here he is just beating press man. This is a guy who is bigger body, used to play tight end, and he's cooking press man. I feel the Dolphins need a big body guy out there on outside. And he also can play with physicality, hard to bring down after the catch. He's going to the Senior Bowl. I feel this is a guy I haven't heard talked about too much. But he's one that I like a lot. And he plays physical in the route stem. Just seems super reliable, and I feel he'd fit in exactly what the Dolphins like. don't want to show too much because college film is tricky. And he's like a, you know, then there's like Harold Fannin. He's a good tight end threat receiver. He's a little undersized, so I'm not exactly sure if he does like to block, but he's undersized, so I'm not sure he's the best inline option. If you want a real blocking tight end, the Georgia Tech kid, Jackson Haas, is like a true wide tight end blocking. I think Gunnar Helm is one of the better all-around guys. Yeah, I have a lot of these. Jack Beck. I think his last name is spelled Bech. It's like Betch, maybe Beck. I don't know. But yeah, I've been finding more and more players that I like in this upcoming class. I do think, like, if you like the draft, this upcoming class is pretty weak up top. Like, I don't think there's going to be as many like top 10 and like overall first round players than there are as usual. But I do think like rounds 2 to 4 is pretty strong, and the Dolphins have some picks there. So, I think that's key for the Dolphins in this class, is really hitting on their rounds 2 to 4 picks. No one in the draft could be better than Tua at quarterback. Yeah, I'm not on a. Even Gav's bring in a legacy. Yeah, Gadsden, Mason Taylor. I don't know if you talked about him. Yeah, Loveland. Yeah, I like Loveland, but I think Loveland gives me like Dalton Kincaid vibes. You know, I think Loveland's going to be a big slot at the next level. I think Loveland's good though, and he's also very young. I think Helm is just like more of. I think if you look at like guys who are like well-rounded, I like Gunnar Helm as like one of the more well-rounded guys. And then Tyler Warren, who just won the Mackey Award, very good player. Like, I think he might be the best tight end of the bunch at Penn State. Yeah, round 2 to 4 will be huge. Put Wynn in between Paul and Brewer and just run left. Yeah. Well, the thing is, I don't think Wynn's not the best run blocker either. I think he's a better pass protector than he is a run blocker. But yeah, I just think at this point in the season, you're not running the ball that well with the offensive line. It doesn't really matter who's in anymore, with no more Austin Jackson, Armstead being banged up. I think it's just you get lucky on a run play and hope it works out eventually. But you're kind of just showing run just to so you can use play action. But yeah, I love the tight end class. Tight end class, very good. D tackle and edge class, also very good. I think the running back class is very good. Off the top of my head, I think those are the strongest positions I've watched. I like the safety class, so I'm interested to dig more into them. I haven't watched a ton yet, but the safeties will be big for the Dolphins too. He's better than Jones, LO. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't even think Wynn's a very good run blocker. I think he's just more athletic. He can be better out in space, which is like the key, I guess. Jason Taylor's sons? Yeah, Mason Taylor for LSU. The problem is he's just very undersized, but I like his skill set. Dylan Gabriel, yep, he's another one I like a lot. If you want like a backup to Tua and you can get Gabriel in say like round 4, that'd be definitely an interesting pick. And those will definitely be positions I think the Dolphins are after. A lot of the guys, like some of the stronger ones. Dude, I was like, Ilb. I read it in my head. I'm like, Ilb would be nice. I was like, Ilb. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, oh, inside linebacker. I was like trying to think of someone named Ilb. And I don't even know. I haven't even tried to read the other. You're good, Lime. You're good. But yeah, off-ball linebacker, another one. It's not the strongest class, but there are some names I like. I like Campbell from Alabama. I like Stutzman from Oklahoma. I haven't watched too many other guys yet, but those are not bad players. If Beck falls due to injury, do you take him? Carson Beck? I'm not a big Carson Beck fan, but if he falls like a decent amount later than expected, yeah, why not throw a flyer on him? It's not like he's the worst fit either out of the guys in the class, but I don't know. It depends where he is and who else is on the board, I think. What round do you think Colin McCord will go? Pretty late. I haven't watched McCord play this year. I know I think he's played better for Syracuse, but from what I saw when he was on Ohio State, I imagine he's still going to go pretty late. There's a lot of names in this class. But I don't know. I recently watched Marcus Mbao, Purdue's right tackle. That's a guy I like a lot. The only problem is he's like only 300 pounds and he's got short arms, so I don't even know if he can play tackle at the next level. And I don't even know if he's big enough to play guard in the interior. But that guy is a tactician. His hands are so good. Like, he really knows how to use his hands, and he's athletic. I wonder if he would even, just based on like his size, I wonder if he would even transition to center at the next level. But that's a guy like, you know, you draft him somewhere on day 2 and you try to figure out a spot for him anywhere on the O-line because he clearly knows how to play. One of the things I would have been thinking is Ramsey player, you probably want to play in the slot more and put him outside whenever you need corner, maybe a free agent to make that happen. Yeah, I've seen people mention this. I've gotten this a few times in the chat where people were like, what if we move Ramsey to the slot or safety and we draft a corner? I don't know if necessarily like he's going to full on transition, but I do think that's something they should keep in mind. Like, if they are in the first round and say I don't know where, they're probably picking in the mid-teens or something, you know, and a corner falls to them and corner is clearly the best position on the board, I don't think that should scare them away. I think they should, you know, take best player available if it's a corner, and then like, hey, if he's an outside guy, let Ramsey work the slot. I think he's more comfortable there. I think he can be more impactful. So I don't mind that idea of him playing mostly nickel. Maybe not full-time safety. He can give you safety reps, but I don't think he's to the point in his career yet where he's going to want to move to full-time safety. But I do think like nickel would, like, slot would be very impactful for him. Because then he can be near the line of scrimmage. He's a very good blitzer. Gets more involved in the run defense, stuff like that. What's up, Ryder? Do you think Dolphins winning is a major upset or is it a closer game? I don't think it would be a major upset if the Dolphins win. I think they're only, 3-point underdogs, 2.5. I don't remember last time what I saw the odds were. I don't think the Texans, and since they're 3-point underdogs, and usually the team that's home gets like a 3-point boost. So that means they're pretty even. And I think they've been playing pretty even. So I think this one is like, it wouldn't surprise me if it went in any single direction. If either team maybe won by like 2 double digits or if it was very close. Like none of those things would surprise me. Just because I think it's so, you know, just the league is so random sometimes anyways. But I just think these teams are actually, Dolphins, Texans are pretty even at this point in the season. Like with how they've been playing. The reason I would if I had to bet, I would still probably bet Texans to win just because I don't have trust in the Dolphins defense at this point. That's kind of where, and they're on the road, so like you just lean Texans, but I expect it to be pretty close. Oh. Why don't we see any Brandon Jacobs, Jerome Bettis, all-star running back type anymore? Henry's the last one, I guess. Yeah, it's rare. I think it's just, you know, a lot of times I think when you look at draft, and not even just running back, I think a lot of people expect like big-sized players like at receiver to be like, even receiver to be like very good. But if you look, a lot of receivers that are like very big end up being bust. It's actually very rare to find the Mike Evans. I think it's the same thing for running back. It's very rare to find guys who are that big, but also athletic enough to be good enough at the next level. So I think they're just rare players. And the game's just gotten more and more athletic, you know? You can find a role for them, but it's just... some of them are limited athletically. And Henry's just a freak. You think Texans have been beating up on bad teams? Beating up? They haven't really been beating up on bad teams. They played close with the Jaguars. They lost to the Titans recently. Maybe earlier on, but like I think recently they've just found some struggles. I'm pretty sure I saw like there was a bunch of teams listed with like that had winning records that like had only beaten one team with a winning record. And I think the Texans were one of them with the Dolphins and like the Chargers and stuff like that. I just think that's a pretty normal thing around the league. I think I think we only have 2 third rounders. Because we used one of them to get Jalen Wright. Because still has to be Chubb, Phillips are too injury prone. Getting Phillips back in, I agree. D tackles bigger need. Yeah, I think it depends how free agency plays out, but I think initially D tackle will be more of a need because Sealer is the only one on the roster. At edge, you at least you'll have Phillips returning, and it depends what they do with Chubb because they might cut Chubb. I think Chubb would be one of the first contracts they're trying to maybe move on from, but they could also keep him. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. And they still have Chop, obviously. So I think D tackle is just more of a need, but edge is definitely something that they can't just ignore. It's one of the premium positions in the NFL. And I think the edge class is pretty good, especially on day 2. Like, I think it's a deep edge class. I don't necessarily love a lot of the first rounders, but I think there's a lot of guys on day 2 that would be interesting. The momentum from tonight's last game is going to be a major factor in my coming back from 8. Definitely possible, Arnold. I hope it is. Sometimes those things end up happening, sometimes it doesn't, but I think it just depends how the Dolphins come out and look. I think the Dolphins offense will have a pretty good game. That's kind of what I'm expecting. I think the Texans have a good enough defense where they'll slow down the Dolphins enough to give them a chance to obviously have a good chance of winning. I think it really just comes down to the Dolphins defense. Do they outperform our expectations? If they outperform my expectations, I expect the Dolphins to win. If they don't, I think they'll lose. It's just that Jets game was not a good sign because clearly we saw the Dolphins defense look good versus the Patriots, which is good, but the Patriots aren't a good team. But it is the NFL. Like, we've seen the Patriots have good offensive performances. But the Dolphins need to play like that or like they did versus the Rams, I think, to win this one. I think Chubb is another OG, like Ogba. Yeah, but I don't know. I feel like, yeah, I mean, it's possible we could cut him or maybe restructure. Maybe they just do a new contract completely. But I think the difference between him and Ogba, if you're talking about Ogba, is I think Chubb would be likely to have a lot more attention from other teams, you know? Because I think Ogba was just still out there because, you know, he wasn't a priority for teams to get. I think Chubb would get more priority. So I don't think it would be as easy. Would love to see Achane break 100 yards this game. Yeah, and hey, all it takes is one play. Dolphins actually had a good run last week where Achane almost broke a long one, and he ended up breaking it for like 30, and he got horse collared on the play. But unfortunately, the Dolphins got called for holding from Ingold, which he didn't even need to hold if you go watch the all 22 of it, because when he started holding him, Achane was already like going past. It was actually blocked up really well. It's by far the best blocked up play the Dolphins have had. But of course, there was a holding call that was pretty unnecessary. That's the thing, dude, is like sometimes all it takes is one good play to be blocked up for Achane to take advantage of it. Ogba is good, but not flashy, I guess. Definitely not flashy. And I wouldn't really say he's fine. I wouldn't really say he's good anymore. He just doesn't win enough one-on-one reps to be considered like good at edge. He just he does his job. He'll set the edge. He'll win on some stunts, but don't really expect much from him in this game because he'll be going versus Larry Tunsil. So you need Chop to win his one-on-ones because they might give Chop some one-on-ones because they usually trust their tackles a little bit more. Will be interesting. Whoop. Probably so funny. I boiled it down to number of defense stops as well. I was hoping for 3. If we can get 4 stops, we win. To be fair, last week versus the Jets, I was saying if we get 1 stop, we win. Which they definitely got more than 1 stop towards the end, but then the Dolphins offense slowed down a little bit in the third. But yeah, hopefully it's not like that first half. Because if the Dolphins defense plays like they did against the second half of the Jets for a full game, then it's fine. Like, it wasn't like they were perfect in the second half, but they clearly got some stops. They gave up some points. I'll take a mix of that rather than giving up points every single drive like they did in the first half. And there was some penalties that did continue drives that were unnecessary penalties. Like that PI on the first drive was just a bad call. Same thing with the Sealer holding call. Those were 2 drives that should end up with no points, and the Jets end up getting points off both those drives. So, and apparently what I saw on Twitter is this is a very flag-friendly crew the Dolphins have. They will throw a lot of holding calls. So if you take some one-on-one shots down the field, like they will call PI, they will call holding on the offense. Like they throw a lot of flags, apparently. Is Chop going to cook? Yeah, I mean, if Chop gets one-on-ones, I think Chop is going to cook. Like he's winning. When Chop is getting one-on-ones, like he is winning his reps at a high percentage. He's just getting double-teamed a lot. And he's really like your only guy creating consistent pressure off the edge. So, I don't know. Chop's playing it really well. I ain't worried about Chop. I expect him to contribute at this point now. When he gets his one-on-ones, I'm thinking he's going to get something good going. I think this game is more so on Sealer and Campbell and the other D linemen to beat this interior line, because I think that is the biggest mismatch the Dolphins have defensively versus the Texans offense. Because I think the Texans receivers will probably have the advantage over the Dolphins DBs. I think if the Dolphins D line can just bully the Texans O line, because I think the Texans interior line is weak, the weakest part of their offense, that's how you can like flip the game and create impacts on that side of the ball. What's Chubb's status? It looks like Chubb is probably going to take another week. And I imagine if the Dolphins lose this game, there's like no point of even bringing Chubb back, because if they lose this game, they're like pretty much eliminated. But yeah. Yeah, just I think that was the reports were saying. I don't think he's been ruled out this week, but it doesn't seem like it's going to happen. Plus, I mean, you don't need to rush him back anyways. Like, yes, it would be nice to have him for this game, but like, I don't imagine if he's rushed back, he's gonna play a bunch of snaps and he's gonna make like a huge impact, you know, because he hasn't played in like literally a year, like literally over a year time, and has only practiced for a couple weeks, and you don't want to, you don't want to risk that. Yeah. Da-da-da-da. Okay. Any questions, guys? Anything? Uh, 20th of the 3 Chubb good and win windows just expire. I thought isn't Isaiah Wynn back? I thought Wynn was already back, but I might be mistaken. I wouldn't be surprised if they let Chubb and good window expire if the Dolphins are eliminated, but I do expect them to come back if the Dolphins win. Look. Okay. That is not what I was trying to spell. Hold on. Gotta put a note in my phone. Don't forget. There you go. Yeah. I thought he was on it for a while. I don't know. I just assumed he was sitting on the bench. Thought he was activated. No. Here. I think if you go, like, yeah, if you go to the Dolphins depth chart, Isaiah Wynn is on the depth chart, and then like Chubb is still is not technically on the depth chart, I don't think. Yeah, he's still on like the other list. So yeah, I'm pretty sure Wynn's back. I think he's been back for like a week or two. Does Mike need to call this game aggressively? I think it just depends on what the Texans give you. I think on what the Texans usually run, then yes, I think he should call it a little more aggressively. Is McDaniel in the hot seat? I think unless they collapse like bad, no. But you never know what happens if you really collapse at the end of the season. Um, let me see. I think Mo Kamara is just not twitchy enough. I mean, 5th-round rookies, and I think the reason he hasn't seen too much playing time is I think they see him pretty similarly to how like the same he plays like the same position Chop does. I feel like so. I feel like he'd be more of like the Chop Robinson replacement. He's not necessarily they don't want to play him and Chop on the field at the same time, and I think that's kind of the problem he's having with getting on the field. Tyreek Hill 60 yards. I hope so. The opportunities are there, like based on their film. It's just sometimes when the teams play the Dolphins, they completely flip it up, like what the Rams did. The Rams ran cover 2 at like 92%. Some other teams ran cover 2 at pretty high rates. And that doesn't mean you can't still have some big plays versus cover 2. It definitely happens. It's just the Dolphins are, kind of just flipped up their system. Tyreek is going for at least 22 yards. Yeah, I think his line is, I think Tyreek's line is like 60 something, so. But yeah, that's, should defense blitz more? More? I don't know if they should blitz more. They tried. I think they tried going more blitz heavy and running cover 0 last week versus the Jets, and it just didn't work. I think situational blitzes and what they've been doing have been pretty fine. Actually, have been some of their more successful stuff. So I don't think they need to overdo the blitzing. I'm like literally just watching. I have a lot of these things. I have so many like prospects bookmarks that I watch in the draft. What's your assessment of the defense and Weaver overall? I think the defense for me, I think the biggest problem is I just don't think they're talented enough right now, and I think they're old. I think the defense just needs a huge overhaul. I think it's kind of hard to assess Weaver with the talent that's out there. I think he's done some good, some not so good, but I think usually when the Dolphins defense has had problems, it's been mostly because players just aren't tackling or they're missing in, like they're making a poor play. So it's more so, I think, on the talent of the defense at this point rather than the scheme of it. But it's tough to, like, I think, give an overall assessment on that right now. But yeah, I would, I think the Dolphins, and I think Chop needs some help off the edge. That would be hugely helpful. And I think our safety play is just really bad. Expecting a big game out of Omar. Of course I am. Huge game. Risk. Watching Jacobs run through arm tackles. He was running through everything. Sometimes they weren't even touching him. They were just letting him go. Boys, boy, hit the like button. Have you no shame? Yeah, guys, come on. I'm just kidding. I don't even know. I don't even see the stream. Yeah, but it should be a good game. I think the Texans have a couple people missing, but overall, I think both teams are fairly healthy at this point in the season. Both teams are missing like a few players, but it's nothing too crazy, especially when you look at it. I think the Dolphins are actually healthier this time around than last time, like this time last year. Even when we make the first tackle, it's first down because of how far back our DB plays. Yeah, that can definitely be a problem, but sometimes, I mean, they have the guys before the first down marker and they still miss all these tackles, or sometimes they get behind them. I mean, it's all kinds of problems with the defense right now. All the Dolphins content creators are afraid to pick the Dolphins and McNair's. Yeah, I'll say this, like, for me, like, I mean, I don't really usually do predictions in any of the games because I just think the NFL is so, flip floppy. But I will say with like I'm slightly optimistic they can win this game. But for the Dolphins to make playoffs, I'm still just like, I'm not in that zone. But I do think this win would like definitely raise my like confidence level in the team a lot. Because I think this is the toughest one left. And if they win this, I think this is like the biggest one left to be like, oh, your chances are legit, because the Niners will still be tough even though they've been losing. But I think they should win that one in Miami. I think they should beat the Browns even in Cleveland. And then they play the Jets again, which, they just barely beat the Jets, but they're still the better team. And by that time, the Jets should really have like potentially given up on the season. So I think this win would definitely bring me back up. But I don't know. At least all the Tua debates over. He's our guy. You're funny. Yeah. Yeah, I still see the Tua debates. They should be pretty much over, to be honest, but they are unfortunately not. They should be maybe not over, but they should be talked about in a different way. But they're still talked about in the exact same way. I'm pretty sure I had a argument on Twitter with someone the other day. Is it true you locked down Michael Pittman? Yes, Daniel Sturr, it is true that I locked down Michael Pittman. He only had one catch for 9 yards on me. He did have 2 touchdowns in the game, however. What do you think about our backup QB situation? I think it's not good. I mean, right now it's horrible, and it should be completely different next year. Whether it's getting a veteran, I don't know who's available, but also Dylan Gabriel on day 3. But yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to go over for the Texas game, and got some draft stuff in there. Anything else? Yeah.